Can we talk for a minute about our Integrating Heart and Mind workshop?
Absolutely. I'm excited. It's coming up in the fall of 2024.
I'm so excited. We changed the format to make it more accessible to people with like work schedules and personal schedules. And so this time we're going to do it 3 hours on a Friday afternoon or evening, depending on where you're at, and 5 hours on Saturday for 2 different weeks in September.
Yeah, it's so great. Like if you're finding yourself stuck in like sticky bad patterns or having communication issues or something like that, or if you want to just like get closer and trust yourself or your partner more, this is the workshop for you.
Yeah, and individuals are welcome, couples are welcome. If you're interested in really thinking through how to serve yourself well inside of your relationships, then we've built a workshop that will support you in finding the ways that are just right for you.
To sign up, head over to our website at whydoesmypartner.com/events.
We hope you'll join us. Welcome to the Why Doesn't My Partner podcast.
I'm Jules.
I'm Vicky.
And I'm Rebecca. We're your hosts. We're also couples therapists and messy humans bumbling through our own relationships every day.
We met through our training and practice of relational life therapy. Between us, we have more than 40 years of experience holding hard relational questions with our clients. We're going to bring those questions here.
And together, we're going to take a stab at answering those questions. This podcast is not a substitute for therapy. If something you hear in this podcast stirs something deep within you about your relationship, reach out to a couples therapist in your area.
Hey there, dear listeners. We're so thankful for you. Today's episode is one of our longest. It's about 45 minutes long. So if you don't have time for it all at once, feel welcome to take it in bite-sized pieces or come back to it when you can. It is really important conversation, and we really think it will help you to take this in for your relationships. We also love to hear your questions, so don't forget to go over to whydoesmypartner.com and leave us a question of your own. Here's today's question.
Why doesn't my partner just tell me they want to connect with me? Sometimes it feels like they just pick a fight.
There are so many reasons. So one thing I think is that we imagine that we could name a behavior and that behavior would have like some really significant underlying meaning and it would always be the same. And I get why we want that to be true.
They always.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Like to simplify it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because humans are not complex beings.
I get that the fact that we're complex beings is super frustrating.
Really hard to sit with.
So one thought that comes to me is about polyvagal theory right away. So for anybody new to polyvagal theory, think about it like this. My autonomic nervous system is gauging 4 times every second, am I safe and am I not safe? And if I am safe, if I'm registering safety, then a certain set of behaviors and functions is physiologically supported. And if I'm not safe, a different set of physiological experiences is supported.
And so if I am safe, I can move into connection.
And bonding and energetic play. So connection through play and excitement experiences. I'm okay to make love, right? Rest and digest functions. All that's supported. So if I'm safe, then yeah, it's cool for me to like go ahead and like relax and play and seek and bond and have space for chillness, right? And then if I'm not safe, and 4 times a second. I know I've probably said that before, but I cannot say it enough.
Yeah, I don't think any of us can say this enough because we're scanning, like all of this information is coming in through all of our different sensory organs, through all of our different senses, through the information inside of our being and just how we digest information. And we are rapidly processing it at this rate of 4 times per second.
Right. Exactly. So I'm scanning my viscera, my heart space, my diaphragm, my gut space, and I'm taking in the environmental cues, sight, touch, smell, sound.
So
all
can
of
I
it.
get really good? This is a joke, but can I get
Yeah.
really good at getting ahead of that process?
No, it's 4 times a second.
Can't practice it enough and get really, really good at it? Never. Shit.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then what do we do?
Yeah. I'm Vicky. I'm watching you have so many thoughts. What's happening?
I mean, like, I've heard this. Not only have I listened to you, I talk to you, I know this. I tell my clients 4 times a second. I'm like really right now processing that it's 4 times a second, like every second.
Every
Like,
second.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot. That's
Should we do the math on how many times a day?
Holy,
Oh
No.
God,
No.
no. It would just freak people out.
But here's what
Like,
I love, because there's another
it's
side to
amazing,
this,
though.
right?
Yeah.
There's another side to this. And Jules, I think we've talked about this in the past, but when we slow down,
Mm.
right? That there's another thing that we can do.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So all is not lost. The trick is, well, I have good news and bad news. I'll give you the bad news first. 4 times a second, your brain scans for safety and danger, which means 4 times a second, that fast, you could go into a danger response, pop, and you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I have good news. 4 times a second, your brain scans for safety and danger. So you could also register safety.
Okay. That I like that. That was an interesting way to phrase it. Yes.
So it's like good news and bad news at the same time. Cool. So what can we do about it is we can develop really good responses to it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, well, I want to talk about this a little bit, because let's say my partner picks a fight with me. They could be picking a fight to get me to do something different, like to get me to go away from them or to get me to move towards them. That's totally possible. So I could be like an agenda space, or I could be in a fight response, like I'm trying to scare you off. So if your partner is picking fights with you, it could be that they're wanting distance, actually, rather than connection. It could be that they pick a fight for an excuse to go cold for a few days. Like maybe they're wanting some space. And it's also totally possible that they're fighting to connect, which I'll get into in a second, because that's like a slightly different process in a different part of the brain. But like it could be that they're wanting to like create safety by creating distance, or it could be that they're wanting to create safety by creating closeness. And I don't know like which one it is.
Right. And I just find myself thinking, let's make it me and my husband, without asking him, which I probably can't do in the moment. I don't really know which one it is either.
Totally. And then we guess we know which one it is. And then we make up a whole story, a narrative in our head about which one. And we're sure we're right.
Yes.
Because I'm always right.
I was just about to say that.
Right. Because I'm always right. And I've been right enough that, 90% is good. And so might as well assume. No, but then we miss it if it turns out we're getting data that doesn't match our narrative. We actually won't take it in. Right. Which is what I mean when I say, well, you're never going to stop it on the front end, but what you can do is respond to it differently. And the skill I love for that is second consciousness. So when I'm building second consciousness, what I'm doing is the first step is really about learning, what are my tells? Like, how do I know when I've neurocepted danger? Neuroception, by the way, is a Porges term. It just means I've scanned and I think it's danger, but like on a body level.
Right. So
I was thinking no one talks like that.
I have one that I can throw in, right?
I am the only human being on earth who talks like that. Yeah.
I'm learning too from hanging out with you long enough. Didn't even catch me. I was just like, all right, here we go.
That one's never going to happen.
So I have one that I know about now that I didn't used to know about, right? When my husband bites his lip, I thought I did something wrong. Something's the matter. Turns out that's not really true.
Yeah.
It might be true like 1 out of 100 times.
Yeah.
But it's not really the truth.
Yeah. And we can see how the narrative can like hook me into neuroceptive danger.
Yeah.
So if I have the narrative, when he bites his lip, that means I did something wrong. And then I see him bite his lip. And then my heart space reacts to the thought.
Yes.
Right. Because we have a positive
Story in
feedback
my
loop
head.
both ways. Right. So the story in my head changes my heart space and goes, and I go into like shame or agitation or whatever. And my heart contracts. And that quarter of a second sand goes, oh, danger.
And I'm in reaction mode already.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So the trick is really when I think about second consciousness for you, one is undoing the narrative, which is awesome that you have. But the other piece is, okay, so what are your body tells
Within
that
my
you're
own
not
body.
okay? Yeah.
Yeah. So what do I notice internally that then is like, so I noticed that my chest would rise, like literally physically. There's like a, right. So there's a tension that shows up. There's a bracing that happens there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So in that moment, so here's the deal is if I'm guessing that I'm safe.
Yeah.
I am ready for connection bonding, making love, connect, all the stuff, all the rest and digest. If I've guessed that I'm in danger, I only can get you to do something else, back away from you psychologically by judging you. I can fight, I can run out of the room, or I can freeze either into a high brace, like I'm expecting something to hit me, or into a collapse where I numb and dissociate a little bit. So those are my options. So when you feel that breath come up, what that means is, oh, I guessed I'm in danger, which means that at this very second, you're not going to be able to connect and bond. So please don't try.
Right. What I have learned.
Please don't try. I like
Please
that.
don't try. I love this, right? What I have learned through this work, through all of this is my work in that moment when I notice that high brace is to notice it, to notice that my chest just rised and then go, oh, okay, I'm having an internal thing here. Let me just sit with that a little longer. And that becomes the beginning of my work. Like it's not turning to him, it's turning in.
Can I point out something huge in addition to the turn in? Listen to how soft your voice was towards yourself. So a really essential piece that's going to help your system move back into safety faster is not to get yourself into safety. That will never work. You're now on an agenda with yourself and you just neuroceptive danger donutted yourself all day long. No, the trick is
to not
compassion.
Can I tell you a funny little story about this? So I caught myself doing this and I did that little piece where I turned in and I sat with myself for a few minutes. And then when I was feeling a little bit calmer and safer, I turned around and I looked at him and I realized he was doing like a crossword puzzle or something like that.
Right.
Like that moment literally had nothing to do with me. He was just deep in thought.
Yeah.
Right? How many times though did I misinterpret something?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And the more compassion we can have towards ourselves rather than beating ourselves up for getting it wrong, I'm putting that in quotes, right? Because I don't know what's right, what's wrong. What we can have a discussion about that for years. But the more compassion we can have for here we are, bumbling humans trying to figure this out, the quicker you're going to be kind to yourself. Now that's really cool because your prefrontal cortex, which is the spot in your brain at the very front of your brain, has direct pathways to 3 different parts of your brain, 2 that measure pain and 1 that measures fear and meaning of fear and meaning of pain. So if I want to calm down the parts of my brain that do meaning of pain and meaning of fear, the best possible option I have, as far as the science now shows us, is compassion. Can I have compassion for my partner? Can I have compassion for me?
Jules, does compassion only live in the prefrontal cortex? Is that what you're telling us? And it takes it to those other places?
Right. So we don't know. That feels like a little bit ahead of the science to me.
Okay.
But what we know is that when people move into compassion, either receiving it or giving it to themselves, that there are parts of your brain on the edge. It's called the lateral and ventral, for anybody who cares, part of your prefrontal cortex on both sides. When you're in self-compassion, it's on the left side of the brain. When you're receiving compassion, it's on the right side.
Interesting.
So it's not, we have to get out of the phrenology of the brain. Think of them as brain states rather than parts of the brain do X, parts of the brain do Y. It's more like states in the brain function in this way. So there's this little like half moon that lights up on either side of my brain, and it goes, "Oh, I'm sorry you're hurting," to the parts of my brain that do pain. And meaning of pain. And why am I hurting? And it calms down all of them. And it also calms down your amygdala, which is processing meaning of fear. So it goes shh to the parts of your brain that are going, ah, if you're in compassion. So that's why I wanted to point out, like, oh, wow, take home point. When you're in second consciousness, a really important part is not just observing yourself, but observing yourself with kindness if you can.
Yeah.
Right. And then, by the way, when you beat yourself up anyway, please don't beat yourself up for beating yourself up. Oh, and when you do that, don't beat yourself up for beating yourself up for beating yourself up.
That somewhere in the process, we slow it down and we go,
isn't this normal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how long do we kind of want to nurture that compassion, that soft kindness for? I mean, like ideally forever, right? But
I was thinking forever.
Right. But like we're freaking human. And so something's going to happen. But I think if I remember correctly from Jules, I remember you telling me something once about dropping in for like 15 to 20 seconds, that's kind of like a magic space when we can drop in for a while, our brain reintegrates, like it can actually do something with that information.
Kind of. It depends. So here's the it depends. You know, I don't fudge on my details. Okay.
Right.
It takes 15 to 20 seconds to register something positive. So the amygdala processes meaning of lots of stuff. Meaning of fear is only one thing. And the parts of the amygdala that are processing meaning of joy, meaning of kindness, meaning of good are way smaller. And it takes them longer to work.
Got it.
Sorry.
Okay.
And so you process pain, fear in 1/4 of 1 second, and you process good stuff coming at you in 15 to 20 seconds. So that's a long time. So if I wanted to sit with compassion and I could catch it as fast as you are, then I need 15 to 20 seconds at least.
Yeah.
I just aim for 30 just to make sure I get it. And then and 30 seconds is a long time.
It is.
Like,
it's a really long time.
Yeah. So we want to kind of draw it out and sit in it a little longer. But if I've gone all the way into a fight flight response, then I probably had a cortisol dump into my bloodstream, and then I need 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to kind of go back though to, yes, 30 seconds is a long time. It is. It also isn't. So like Rebecca, in that story of like, you looked over at him and he was doing a crossword puzzle. We're not asking you to stop your whole night and sit in your compassion. Like 30 seconds is not that long to hold yourself warmly in that mistake. And I put mistake in quotes, right? And then like, or even if I'm in the thick of it with my husband, even 30 seconds is not that long for me to like pause and breathe and take my time out or whatever. So it both is and it isn't.
I think though
as ambiguous as that is,
feels like a quote unquote long time when we're in a not safe place.
Yes.
When the compassion is online, 30 seconds is so like we could sit there. We could linger there. But when that kindness and that compassion is the part that like is missing.
Yeah.
It feels like a really long time.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, just think about, I wonder if we could just do it for a moment.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm going to get out a timer.
Yeah.
I'm going to time it because why not? So hold on. I have a clock somewhere on here. Here we go.
We do like a kindness meditation during this time or something.
Right. Yeah. So what we're going to do. Okay. So I wonder if you could just notice some moment when you've gone into like a threat space. So notice a moment when like maybe your chest rose, or a moment when you felt like, oh, and your fist clenched up, or a moment when you went like, and just wanted to like drop your head and not have eye contact. Right. And then go ahead and notice, oh, that's normal. That's human. Oh, it's hard. It just said it's hard. It's hard to be human. It's hard to feel scared. It's hard to. Yeah. We're only 15 seconds in, guys. Keep going. And you can give it a color. If I had love for myself, what color would it be right now? Mine came up pink with little white edges. Okay, now 30.
Okay, that was a long time.
It is a long time. Well, it is and it
Yeah.
isn't. No, but I'm with you,
Right.
Vicki, because I think we often, because it feels weird to stop that long.
Mm-hmm. That's what it is. Yeah.
Because it feels weird, because that's not how our world works. And so it's like out of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Because it feels weird, it's going to feel like a really long time. And that's true. And in the larger scheme of things, if I could pause for 30 seconds and give myself a little love, and then I could come out of that and go, honey, I just made up a crazy story. Could I ask you if it's true? And he looks up from his crossword puzzle and goes, huh? Didn't I just save our night? So that 30 seconds ends up being very worth it, but it's going to feel awkward and weird if you actually take it.
I think we need to back up for a minute though here.
Yeah.
Because, we're talking really about the difference between first and second consciousness. I don't know that we've really explained the two.
Do it.
Right? So first consciousness is really a whoosh kind of feeling, like something comes through me. I go through that am I safe? Am I not safe? Quarter of a second piece. And I go right from there into the unconscious story, the implicit knowings within me, which bring me right into these big feelings, which bring me right into big reactions. And I go right into the reaction. And that all probably happens within a second or two.
Yeah.
And so if I can notice, and this is the second consciousness part, that was first consciousness. Second consciousness is now me noticing like, oh, I know that feeling in my chest. Okay, wait, what's happening there? Oh, I'm having a feeling. What's that feeling about? Oh, it's about the way he just bit his lip. Why? What's happening? What am I telling myself? Right. So now I'm in this whole thing, and now I'm giving myself this time. This is before I've even done that 30 seconds of compassion work.
Well, and you're talking to yourself so slowly in that. I would say even in that, you are doing 30 seconds of compassion work.
Right.
So like what do I do when I move into second consciousness? So mine's a shame one. So I would tend to panic, get really tearful, feel incredibly angry, and then go into a shame pit within about a second and a half. And so by the time I catch it, I'm probably in the like empty gut, drop down, I shouldn't make eye contact with anyone ever again feeling. And what I do in that moment is I put a hand on my heart and a hand on my gut, and I go, Jules, stop. Sweetie, it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is shame. This is normal. Everybody has this feeling. Okay, what's actually going on? Is everything actually okay? And I might check my surroundings a little bit. And, I might, when I suddenly do that, everybody in the room goes, what is she doing? And like stops what they're doing. So it kind of gave them an automatic signal that maybe I'm not okay. Right. But I'm thinking about different moments I do that when I'm parenting, or different moments I do that with my husband. And I can just, stop. So it's like a pause, but it's like got a lot of care and kindness in the pause. It's got firmness in the pause.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't get to keep moving forward, but it's also got a lot of love in the pause.
I'm watching you right now over the screen, and I'm seeing how you're putting your hand there. And as you do that, even just as you act it out in this moment right here, I noticed that there's a feeling that comes through me seeing you do that. And as I pay attention to what that is, I notice inside of me, I'm going, oh, what's happening for Jules there?
Yeah.
Right. And so I even just hear it in how I'm thinking right there. Like everything about me just went, oh, in like a slow and soft
I was just
way.
going to say slows down.
Yeah.
It does slow
down.
everything down. Yeah.
And then for me, my work is actually to speak up in that moment, because my protectors don't go for attack. My protectors go a little more into withdrawal. So my protectors would be likely not to say what's on my mind. And I might go silent for a long time. and kind of freeze. So my job in that moment when I stop myself is actually to help myself gather my thoughts so that I can say what's true for me. So I think everybody has their own thing they do next. Sorry, Vicki, I cut you off.
No. But I want to piggyback on that I'm not even as evolved yet as you are with my skills, because right now all I can do in those moments is take a time out. And so it's not even about holding myself right then and how do I respond to my husband. It's about knowing like, okay, I'm there. And I say, I can't respond in a healthy way right now. I have to take a time out. And then I also wanted to add that for me, that I don't have a whoosh. My first consciousness is completely cerebral. It's all in my brain. I know that I wouldn't even say on fire because I don't really feel it in my head, but I know I'm riled up and want to kill him. I use that term loosely, but I don't feel anything in my body. So
so your body goes away.
My body goes away.
And your brain is like, and I will kill him now.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love that. So I actually think of it as basic behavior, affect, sensation, image, cognition. It's the basic ways we show up in the world.
Say that again.
So,
basic.
Wow.
Behavior, affect, sensation, image, cognition. So these are the 5 elements that a neural network is actually processing and feeds to your conscious mind. So you can track your whoosh in any one of those ways. Do you do a thing? Do you have a behavior of moving forward or backward? Do you have a specific feeling, fear, anger, shame, and affect? Sensation. Does your chest feel like it rises? Do you get that drop in your gut like I do?
Do you go cold? Do you go warm?
Right, exactly. Cold, warm, these sorts of things. So do I have a sensation in my body? Image. This one is like a history thing. Do I flash like memories of something from my past all of a sudden? Sometimes our brains speak to us like that. Like all of a sudden we're making associations from other points in our life that are dangerous. Or cognition is yours more thought-based. So your brain speaks all these 5 different languages all the time. And so whichever one is your go-to language, like, cool. This way you don't have to think, oh, well, I don't feel my body, so I guess I can't do that second consciousness thing they're talking about.
Right.
No, you can totally do it. Find your language.
Yeah.
And it's also something that it takes some time to learn. Yes. And I think about this as like, this is really about building connection with the self.
The self.
Right? Like it's totally worth taking the time out for me to learn what my body's trying to tell me.
Yes.
Right. And it's worth taking the time out to learn yours too. Like all of these pieces are worthwhile. And if I can slow down and be like, what's happening inside of me right now? And notice that behavior or that feeling or that sensation or that image that I'm kind of coming up with again, or that thought that I'm having, right? That basic stuff. I love that acronym,
I'm
by
thinking,
the way.
Oh my God. That's
right?
awesome.
Oh my goodness.
So it's for anybody who's like super into body work and stuff, you'll know SE has a similar thing, SIBAM, sensation, image, behavior, affect, meaning. There are lots of different therapies. I could name 5 off the top of my head, therapies that track this data. But I like the way IPNB says it because it's an actual word and it's the word basic. And so it helps me remember.
It's so much.
That's great. It's great.
It's wonderful. And that's really what it is. We're learning how to track ourselves.
Yes.
Right. And so when we're learning how to track ourselves, you could track yourself in any way. And don't think that just the way you do it, just because it's different than your partner or different than your friends is wrong. Your brain speaks all 5 languages. Let's get fluent in all of them. Start wherever you are. And that's great.
I love this.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's funny that how the comparisons, Jules, because I have found that in my couples sessions, when I mention I don't feel anything below the neck, which is not healthy, comes from my own childhood, I'm working on it, blah, blah, blah. But when I mention that, the husbands like have this relief. And then the wives, and this has happened like 3 different times, the wife will say, oh, I do. And then me and the husband look towards her in session sometimes as the expert on that. Like, okay, well, where do you feel sadness in your body? Because we don't feel it. But me not feeling it either normalizes it for those husbands of like, I now story in my head because they don't say it, but like they don't feel as wrong or different or whatever. And they, it normalizes it for them.
Yeah. And this is one of the huge things. Like
Mhm.
when we're scared, the biggest deal is we don't want to feel alone because there's something worse than feeling scared. And that is feeling scared and alone.
Oh, I never thought about it that way, but that's beautiful. I love that.
And so if you can
Wow.
undo your aloneness just a little bit
Within
Yeah.
yourself.
yeah, then the scared is actually easier to metabolize.
Mm. You know, I've been unpacking some of the fights that some of my couples have been having in therapy. And what I'm noticing is that so many of the kind of, if we get down to like, what is it really that you're
Mhm.
fighting for? Like what is the thing that you really want right here?
Yeah.
Right. And when we get
Mhm.
down to those things, it's like, I don't want to be rejected, or I don't want to feel like a failure.
Mhm.
Or right.
Yeah.
And so like
Mhm.
all of these pieces start to get to that. They start to point to those places where it's like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be alone.
Yeah. And a lot
Yeah.
of times, and I love the way Les Greenberg talks about this. He's a therapist out of Canada, worked with Sue Johnson. He was her mentor for a long time. And he talks about in couples, all the stuff kind of goes down to one of two spaces.
Mhm.
One is about connection, but the other one's about identity.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so it could be that I'm afraid of failing or like I'm not good enough sort of stuff. Right. And of course,
Yeah.
that might lead to rejection, but really, I think it's more like an abandonment of self that we're worried
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
And then the other side is the attachment stuff.
Yeah.
So, all about, oh, am I enough for you, or am I choosable?
Yeah.
Am I choosable?
Am I choosable? Do you want me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I a wanted being? Yeah.
These are such normal questions. Like I think
Mhm.
every single couple I've worked with comes in with these questions.
Mhm.
Yeah. And sometimes they're voiced and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're kind of underneath the surface,
Yeah.
playing in the background. And we all, really underneath are these little kids wondering if I'm good enough and wondering if I'm choosable and wondering if I'll be proud of myself and all the stuff, all the regular like human stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that brings me back to the question that we started with. Why does my partner pick a fight with me when they want to connect?
Right. So wait, but there's more. This is going to be a long one, guys.
It's okay. We're in it.
But wait, there's more. Okay. So what about the midbrain? So there's this guy, Jaak Panksepp, who writes beautifully about processes in the midbrain. And the midbrain is at the top of your brainstem. So the autonomic nervous system that we've been talking about is in the brainstem on the lower end. And now I'm going to be talking about the brainstem on the upper end. And he talks about emotions having a root and that they're rooted in this moment of need. And if we express a need and it gets met, we move through one pathway of behaviors. Seeking care and it gets met. And now I'm in love and oxytocin dumps. And then I can move into play. And when appropriate, developmentally, I'll also move into lust and sexual connection and romance. Okay. But what happens if it doesn't get met?
Mhm.
What happens if I make a bid, I have a need, and it doesn't get met? Well, the first thing is panic grief.
Panic
Oh
grief.
Oh my God, I can tell this is not working. And there's urgency in it and there's grief simultaneously. A lot of us are going to feel really familiar with that one. If that doesn't work, we move into terror. I am totally alone in this world. If that doesn't work, we move into rage. And therefore, all of these are trying to get the other person to respond with care. Rage is actually a bid for connection.
Ooh, my brain just blew up.
Whoa. So, and you can see it in a baby. Okay, can I tell you like real life story?
Please.
Yeah, but I'm still
Okay.
like, my brain is still like
Yeah.
all over the place. I got to put it back together.
Right, totally. Here's the thing is I had been reading this stuff forever. I've been seeped in this stuff since 2009. So I read a lot of all this stuff. And I read this in Jaak Panksepp's work. It was like, rage is a bid for connection. Really? I see what you're saying. I see the neuroscience. I understand why you're probably right. But man, do I see it? I don't know. Rage feels like me to push me away. Then I had this moment. So my kiddo is like 3 when this happens. And she's 7 now. She was 3 then. And I'm sitting down on the kitchen floor and I was doing something where my attention was not fully on her. I don't know what I was doing. I was doing something with my hands and like not looking at her. And she was trying to talk to me. And so she's there and she's saying, Mommy, da 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 da. And I hear her voice start getting whiny. Panic, grief. Here, there it is. And I go, yeah, I'm listening still. But I didn't turn to her. I kept going with whatever I was doing. I didn't turn to her. And she starts escalating. And the whine gets bigger and more shrill and more like almost like a fear, like, ah! I said, I hear you, but I didn't look up. And she took her little hand and grabs my face and yanks my head around to her. And she goes, Mommy, listen to me. And I was like,
there it is.
Oh, rage is a bid for connection. Got it. So if it's not happening at the autonomic nervous system level, maybe it's still happening super subconscious in the brain, but maybe if your partner's fighting and connection usually follows, maybe they're using rage as a bid for connection. What do I do with that if that's my partner? Well, I think I speak up and say, we have to find another way. If I'm the person who's doing it, I think the thing to do is to recognize that's a pattern for you and then to do a U-turn so that you can directly request connection.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, is both of those moves you're not going to want to do because they are incredibly vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be that my partner rejects me. And it's easier to deal with the ragey feelings sometimes than it is to deal with the rejection feelings.
Yeah.
And so when I say this, I don't mean to say it's cool that my daughter grabs my face and swings me around and yells in my face. I actually want to help her not do that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing that that's what was going on helped me not be that reactive to it.
Yeah.
So thank God I've been studying this stuff. And she does this. And I went, oh, honey, you're right. I was not listening to you at all. And she melts into me and starts sobbing. And we're there and I'm rocking her. And she's looking up at me and I said, what did you want to say? And she told me whatever it was. I don't remember. It was something, whatever. She was talking, dogs are brown. I don't know. Like, whatever. Like sometimes they are, you're right. She was I honestly don't remember what she said, but then after that I said, yeah, sweetie, let's not grab bodies when we're mad. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because I do want to limit that. Right. And if anybody's putting their hands on anyone, I'm a big advocate for nonviolence. That is not okay.
I'm hearing
Just
something
because
though in here of what you did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What you were saying is important, that non-violence is not okay.
Yeah. And I'm never an advocate for it. And there's no excuse to turn that feeling into a behavior that hurts another person ever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I want to be hyper clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying as we're understanding these processes, I'm not saying that to excuse behavior in any way.
Right.
Right.
And it may be that when somebody's really pissed, it's because they're wanting us to care about them.
Yes. And I'm hearing something in what you did in that parenting moment that I think also applies to couples.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to extract it and kind of open it a little with us.
Yeah.
The moment of correction, right? The we don't put our hands on people's bodies in that way. It happened after the connection.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the connection had to happen that she could melt into, where she could feel safe again. And then the correction could happen.
Mm-hmm. Which is hard in couples because that means I'm taking turns.
Yeah.
In that moment, what I did was I made it her turn, not my turn.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I had just gotten my face grabbed. But, she's 3 and I'm like 44. So I am now. I don't remember how old I was then. I can't do math that fast. But But I'm 40 or whatever, and she's 3. So it's my job to be the regulated one in the room. Now, if I'm with my partner, maybe I need to take a break before I can figure out how to take turns.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're right on about pointing that piece out.
Yeah.
That making the connection is the important thing. And then we work out the details of how to do that differently and what is and is not okay for me, so that I actually have a listening person on the other side.
Right. Because I'm thinking about how many times a partner goes into that rage place and the other partner, how do they meet them there? What do they do? Do they go into a rage too? Do they back away and pull up? Right. Like it varies.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and if it's
above.
rage with any scary behavior, I say get out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I often see the rage, at least in my office, I see the rage as like a loud voice.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's not something scary underneath it. There's more of that like terror that you're talking about underneath it. That terror that I'm going to be left alone and I'm going to have to sit with these feelings and that panic and that fear.
Yeah, I have a question that I can pull out of my back pocket for that moment. If it's not scary, never put yourself in danger to do this. But if it's not scary, they're just loud voice. Here's what I do. I raise my voice up to meet them and I go, "What is hurting or scaring you right now?" And that's a really important question because something, it could be, not always, because some people do this out of modeling and it's actually, so the anger piece could be happening even at the limbic level, which is not where we're talking about. So what if I'm just mimicking what I saw my dad do or whatever? And that's a totally different thing. And it's modeling and it may not be based in any wounding.
Thank you for that distinction, because I've
been
thinking that this whole time. Okay.
It may not be. We could even drop into the upper layer. Like, what if my partner learned to fight because they watched somebody fight?
Yeah.
And it's not actually coming from a wounded space underneath. It's coming from modeling. So that's possible too. And those are really different, right? But if it's coming from more the midbrain place, then probably there was like a need that isn't getting met. And they're making a bid for that care.
And so is there a way for people to make that distinction other than just sitting?
Ask.
Curiosity.
I think so. I think we need to that's when I move into meta conversation, right?
Yeah.
So here's another skill, highlight skill. Meta conversations are the things that happen when we're both calm and we're talking about larger processes.
Yeah.
So in this case, I've noticed that sometimes you're bringing a lot of anger energy to me. It happened on Thursday and it happened before that. And then it happened the week before that. And it actually feels like a pattern. I've noticed we're really disconnected. Could you take a look at that pattern with me? What do you think is going on with you?
And I just want to highlight, because it's so important, that this is not happening in the heat of the moment, in the heat of any moment. This is happening in another moment when everybody's kind of really calm.
Yeah. And I can express what's going on for me even in that calm space. So it might sound something like, I do want you to know that this does not feel good to me and it does not make me feel closer to you. And I do want to feel closer to you. I really want to figure out a way to work this out. Could you help me? And let's get curious about it together. What is really going on with you? Like, what are you feeling? What are you thinking right before these things happen? And you'll catch whether is somebody like safety issue, a needs not getting met issue, or more like a pattern. Like I know how to do this, so I'm just doing it.
That would be the modeling.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's more the modeling piece.
What I have found for those meta conversations that works really well in my own marriage is we plant seeds for them. Like, hey, I've been having this
idea.
thought, and I want to just kind of plant a seed here with you. I want to give it to you to chew on. And then can we come back and talk about it at another time?
And do you share it from like a, here's what I've been noticing space? Or do you share it from like, I'm wondering what you're thinking space?
It could be either. right? Often it's like, I've been thinking about this and I don't think we need to talk about it right now, but can you chew on it for a while and let me know when you want to talk about it? Because I'd like to come back to it with you.
Oh, I like that, leaving it open-ended for the comeback, for lack of a better term. Of like, you let me know when.
Yeah.
Yeah. So skill highlight. If I direct request what I need, then I don't need to move into rage to get it, but that's a vulnerable move. So no, you'll be scared. If my body, mind, basic behavior, affect, sensation, image, cognition, if any of those tell me I'm in a total fear state, then I cannot connect and bond. Time for second consciousness. And I can also, if I'm moving into if I'm the fighter, what if I'm the person on the other side of this question? So if you're listening and I'm the fighter, you can U-turn and look at what is it and kind of wonder, is this modeled for me? Is it more like when needs don't get met, I do this? Is it more when I'm in danger that I do this? Maybe it's all three because that happens. I'm sorry to make it so complicated. And then meta conversations. So if you do notice a pattern, I love your idea about laying seeds.
Yeah.
It's funny when you say it could be all three, because at least for two, I found myself thinking, I have expressed some rage sometimes to my children. I don't admit that happily. And what I have found for me is that I do believe some of it was modeling. My mom had done that. And the other piece of my first consciousness is I have this tape in my head that I'm working to rewire that says my voice has no value. So when they're not listening to me and I interpret that as my voice has no value, it's basically a 4-year-old yelling, just listen to me already, will you? So it's the modeling and the first consciousness. It's both of them at the same time.
Yeah. And there's that rage bid for connection piece coming up. Yeah. So it could be a really unique landscape, and it's, unique as a fingerprint. Yours is yours. Your partner's is your partner's. And so we just move into that U-turn space and try to check out, I wonder what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's when I take my time out.
Right.
Or time in.
Either way. If you can do a time in, great.
Well, I guess what I mean by time in is like, I take my time out. I move away from the thing that's eliciting this response, right? But then I go in to figure out what's happening inside.
Yeah.
I see. So when you're in a timeout, you're in a time in. I love that. Yes. That's awesome. All right. That brings us to the end of another time together.
We'll see you again next week.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, guys. That wraps up this week's episode. Join us again next week for another Why Does My Partner?
We hope that you continue to listen wherever you get your audio and that you'll follow the show.
To go deeper, join us at our bootcamp. You'll find the next date at whydoesmypartner.com.